Joining us now is Professor Ann McCants, who is the 2014 AHA Program Chair. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
The theme of this year's meeting is, I want to get this right, disagreement, debate, and discussion. What inspired that?
Well, a number of things. Our president this year is Ken Pomerantz, who wrote a really important book a little over a decade ago called The Great Divergence that really did start a major debate on the sources of economic growth comparative between East Asia and Europe. And so I think he is somebody who personally has disagreement and debate on his mind. But it was also the case, I think, that we were going to be in Washington, D.C., and the news media has been speaking endlessly about sort of the increase in polarization and the divides that divide us. And it seemed like an appropriate moment for historians to reflect, first of all, is that new, right? Or is sort of deep-seated disagreement something that's just part of being human and we can see it everywhere? But also, I think, to take advantage of setting an example while we were here in Washington. This is how people can actually disagree with each other reasonably. So it's partly about content and it's partly about form.
Maybe Congress will be watching.
We can only hope.
We can only hope. Tell us a little bit about the range of sessions that maybe reflect that theme.
Well, there are a number of them. I think people really took the call for papers very seriously and worked hard to come up with connections to the theme. For instance, there's going to be a session on reflecting on Watergate at 40, and obviously that was a watershed moment in American history, and I think that roundtable discussion will generate a lot of interest. Looking back, and obviously it's also the anniversary of World War I, the start of World War I, and that is an episode that has completely shaped the way 20th century history has been studied. And so there are a number of sessions that follow that theme. But then there are other things that are perhaps a little less obvious. There are a couple of very interesting sessions planned on global climate change, and not just in the contemporary moment, which is of course what everyone might think of right away, but there are a number of sessions on the Little Ice Age of the 17th century, for instance. And I noticed going back through the program again to refresh my own memory that the medievalists and the South Asianists and the Africanists have all gotten into the spirit of things as well. There's going to be a session later this meeting on major disagreements in the High Middle Ages, and another on sort of Reformation issues in early modern Europe. So I think it's not just the 20th century historians who are thinking about these kinds of questions, it's the whole range of historians.
Sounds like a broad spectrum.
We hope so. The program committee tried very hard to get representation from sort of the whole of human history.
What do you want people to take away from here? What's the takeaway, I guess, message?
Well, I mean, I think in keeping with the theme that was so important to our president this year, I hope that people will walk away having truly witnessed disagreement in a civil and productive context. I hope that people will see old friends and colleagues, that they will meet new people, that they'll make connections. Obviously, there are a lot of younger scholars who come to these meetings, and for them, I think it's critical that they see, first of all, just how the profession works, and that they make the kinds of network connections that will be important to them in career building. That's a very important part of these meetings as well, is regeneration of the profession.
And that's an important thing to point out, the social aspect of it as well. So
I hope so.
Terrific. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.